Welcome back. Time to show off one of the cool scores over the last week since the last video. And what we got here is a 1933 to 34 Malvern Star Roadster. So very, very cool. If anyone knows me, you know I'm into bikes. Now, firstly, it's not a guess. There's detailed information about the serial numbers of these online, so we're able to date them pretty accurately based on the serial number. Being in 1933-34, this was Depression era. So even having a bike in that era, you probably would have had money. You know, definitely not an average person. But now this was a racing bike from its day. Not a track racing bike, but a dirt road kind of racing bike. So very, very rare thing from that era. Now we've got the stars in the lugs. Malvern Star's signature 6-pointed star. Malvern Star started in 1902, so very early company. And somewhere, I think about 1925, 1926, Bruce Small bought the company, and that's where the company really started to expand. He took on a racer by the name of Hubert Opperman, or Oppie as he's known. He basically became world champion in the 20s and 30s. Being a bicycle racer, you were a superstar, a celebrity. So Oppie was known all over the world, and I think BSA in England even named a bicycle after Oppie. So very, very famous. Now, another sign of these early ones is this interesting stem setup, which we call a major tailor. So you can see it's square there, and this actually can slide forward and back for adjustability. Now this stem would have been longer in originality. You could buy them and then just cut them to size. So these are very sought after because they're very distinctive of the early century up to the 30s they were used. Now another distinguishing feature here is the clip headset. It's almost like a seat clamp, like you would find on a modern day seat clamp, but it's for the headset. So that steer tube actually has a crease in there. Looks like a side-on H, where that clipping in clamps it. You would tighten it down and then clamp it up together. So they're very sought after because they're a distinguishing feature of the early bikes. Interesting seat. I doubt that this seat would be original to the bike. If anything, this looks almost exactly like a seat off the bike we showed last time, which was the Repco Monoshock. They had a seat just like this. Also the artistic bicycle riding, if you look into that, where they do tricks and stuff, they had a seat very similar to that. So I'm not 100% sure. Other than that, is very unlikely to be an original seat. You can see an aftermarket fitting here where you could put your, there's the bottom of it down there. Up here you could put your pump in there, so you had a pump while you're out riding. Some of the original decals are still survived on there, possibly some more of them underneath the rust here. So 28-inch wheels. I think if it had 27-inch wheels is where it would probably most likely have been one of the track bikes. So in that era they had just single speed, of course, and it's a fixed gear. But it's a proper fixie, so it's not a free wheel. The pedal and the cog, you can't stop pedaling like you can now in coaster. You stop pedaling and your whole bike keeps moving. This one, if you're moving forward, you would have to have kept pedaling. It's just what a fixed wheel is. So single speed, fixed wheel, and actually, if we look on the other side, you can see a thread on the other side of the wheel too. That was the closest thing to having gears back in the day. They would have had a different size cog here, a different number of teeth. So depending what track they would be racing on, they could take the wheel out and simply flip it over and have the different cog on the other side. They call it a flip-flop hub because you could spin it around. And also another sign of these earlier bikes, the chain ring is actually removable from the crank. You can see there's 5 bolts in there that you could undo, and you could remove you could change the chainring. Later on, probably by the 50s, that was all just one piece and pressed on there, and they'd done away with being able to change them. You can see the headlamp here, which would have been run by this dynamo, a little like like the car alternator. It's spinning, generates electricity. Anyone over a certain age will remember what these are. I very much doubt that that's original to the bike. This is probably more 1950s or 60s version, though they did have these in the 30s. So someone's put it there on it at some point. It's a Federal brand, so a cool little addition on there. I'll leave it on there just because it came with it. So very, very cool. I imagine it's worth hundreds of dollars, but we're probably not going to be selling it. It'll stay in my collection. Now we can see the serial number down here, as mentioned before. And these things right here are part of, there used to be a cam on there, a bit like a motorcycle, if you know, in the shape of a snail, and you would turn it and it would force against that to move the wheel back, or you would turn it up to get closer, just so you could get perfectly even wheel setting there. So great bike, and it's one of those ones that it's got a good story. A guy came to buy some pool fencing off me, and he sees all my bikes and he says, oh, I've got an old 1930s Malvern Star in the shed that you can have. And I thought, oh, geez, I'd be interested in that. You know, most of the time it's going to turn out to be a 1950s, 1960s bike that they just think is from the 1930s. But sure enough, I go there and lo and behold, it's actually a 1930s bike. He thought late 1930s, but by the serial number, 1933, 1934. So this could be the earliest Malvern Star I've got in my collection. Scored it for free, best way to get it. So thought I'd show it off. Thanks for watching. See you next time.